The Ice Barrier Archetype by TGS Anime.
The Ice Barrier Archetype is a purely water-attributed series of monsters that come in three core parts: the warriors, the generals, and the sealed dragons. Oh, and there's also this good boy.
Hi, DeLorean.
The archetype made its first debut in 2009's booster pack Hidden Arsenal. Further support would slowly be added over the next decade in packs The Shining Darkness, Starstrike Blast, Hidden Arsenals 2, 3, and 4, Photon Shockwave, Battles of Legend, Light's Revenge, Lightning Overdrive, Blazing Vortex, Gold Series 3, Duelist Saga, and the most recent support in 2021's Structure Deck Freezing Chains.
I totally missed that structure deck, and I'm really upset that I missed it, especially with the new Ice Barrier support that came in one of the recent sets, the new dragon.
The idea behind an Ice Barrier deck is to summon one of, or as many of the extra deck dragons as possible, as each wields a powerful effect that is able to lock down the opponent. Brionac can return multiple cards on the field back to the hand every turn. Gungnir can destroy up to 2 cards on the field every turn. And Trishula, well, Trishula can banish 3 cards on summon.
Is that post-nerf? I guess, sorry, or not nerf. It's technically a nerf. Is that post-errata Brionac or pre-errata Brionac? I think that's post, right? No. Let me go back really quick.
Every turn.
I think that's pre-nerf? Yeah, that's the structure deck one, so that's post-nerf. Brionac used to be able to loop with Brionac, is the context there. So this is after.
Gungnir can destroy up to 2 cards on the field every turn. And Trishula, well, Trishula can banish 3 cards on summon. 1 from the hand, 1 from the field, and 1 from the grave. In fact, nowadays as well, it even has a shiny new form, which adds even more versatility to the things these dragons can do. However, there is an unfortunate problem tied to these boss monsters, and that is the fact that they all have generic summoning requirements,
yeah, they're
yet
generic.
have
they're
powerful, splashable effects that aren't tied to their own archetype. Why?
Let's put it this way. Like, when you created a good card, when in 2024 you still have decks running Trishula. Okay, let's just put that into perspective, right? Ice Barriers, they don't just go in Ice Barrier decks. They are effectively generics. Trishula, if you drop a Trishula like it's hot, you still do damage.
Is that a problem, you might ask? It makes them extremely versatile, right? Well, I would say yes, but that also means that even despite the fact Brionac, Gungnir, and Trishula are ace monsters to the Ice Barrier archetype, the irony is they are actually very rarely played within their own archetype, as pretty much every other Synchro-based deck can get out these monsters better than their own archetype can. And that's kind of sad. The reason for this is because Ice Barriers don't have a particular archetypal gimmick or strategy that sets them apart. They all kind of do different things. However, giving points where they are due, this has changed slightly as of late thanks to the latest support they received. Now, the deck is more focused on relying on the low-level monsters, locking down the opponent's monsters in various ways, giving the user...
What was the old strat? Wasn't it General... I have to remember. Wasn't it General Ryo was the big one? General Ryo? I can't remember what it was, but Ice Barriers have kind of always suffered this effect of just they've kind of been mid. I know the generals were the big one. You didn't play one of the generals. Royal Knight, I don't think even saw play ever. I think he was bad, wasn't he? Ryo, yeah, he's hella strong. He does things. Like, and that being said, like the nerf really ends up hurting. The limit of Brionac, the limit and banning of Brionac, the banning and limit of Trishula over the years. Gungnir, I think, was at 2 at one point. I know DeLorean was at 2. Like, it's rough because Ice Barriers, the good stuff from Ice Barriers has always been good in other things, way better in other things. And I feel like you could have circumvented this by not making them vanilla, right? Like, have it be like tuner plus 1 Ice Barrier monster. And that's the thing with card design, right? That's the thing with balancing any game, right? Why is Pot of Greed bad? Well, it's bad for game design because it's just an inherent +1, right? Everyone's going to run 3 Pot of Greed, right? It's why people run worse. Wow, I cannot speak today. Good God, we run worse versions of Pot of Greed happily. Straight up. Like, look at your pot of dualities. Look at your not avarice. That's a little different. prosperities and stuff like that. You know, variants of the pot cards. We run worse versions of them gladly because we have access to them. So how you make something like this work, and you can have busted effects in Yu-Gi-Oh! We have so many busted effects in Yu-Gi-Oh!, right? But some of them are balanced and mitigated by the fact that they have specific requirements. You can have a baller effect, but you have to. But if you narrow what it does, you start to balance the card out a little bit. If you have a card that does, you know, is makeable by pretty much anything, like anything can make it, and it has a baller effect, well, suddenly you run into a situation, you know, like Exciton Knight, where it becomes really oppressive in a format, or Shockmaster, right? It's not bad to inherently limit the scope of what you're doing. And I think Ice Barriers proves that, or at least supports that claim.
Time to break out their ice dragons. This playstyle does actually fit with the theme of the deck too, as the more ice barrier monsters you're able to get on the field, the colder the aura they are able to emit, essentially freezing them in place and causing them to not really have any place to do. That is until you decide to break out the extra deck monsters, where unfortunately you have to give up all of your protections for an all-out attack. Yeah. Now, the ice barriers are a part of a very long and deep storyline within the Yu-Gi-Oh! Dual Terminal lore. It involves betrayal, hatred, war, and it all intertwines dozens of other archetypes. It's a long story, and unfortunately, we don't have time to tell it all today. I guess we could talk a little bit about it. Specifically how the ice barriers were the ones responsible for enveloping the world in a veil of ice, after they released 3 cataclysmic dragons. In fact, a quick bit of backstory. Long ago, before all of this happened, there were 3 dragons that rampaged up on some snowy mountains. A man who would become the founder of the Ice Barrier tribe was able to seal these 3 dragons using a special mirror, and he was able to keep them at bay. This act actually allowed his spirit to transcend, becoming an ethereal watchkeeper for the 3 dragons. Long ago, there existed 4 tribes, caught in a perpetual cycle of war with one another.
Man, I was in high school when we had, like, Hidden Arsenal sets coming out. Good God. I'm going back to this. I haven't thought of some of these cards in a hot minute.
Tribes consisted of the Flamevel, who resided in the Nation of Fire, the X-Sabers, who lived in the domain of Earth, the Mist Valley, who resided in the Land of Wind, and the Ice Barriers, who existed in the Providence of Water. These 4 tribes would engage in war with one another for many decades, as a means to expand their own territory. However, none could seem to take the upper hand. However, this all changed when they appeared. Organisms from outer space descended down upon the dual world. Monstrous biological creatures with slanted mouths and a slimy exterior. They were part of an invasive species that would latch itself onto passing meteorites and would lie in wait until they collided with a hospitable planet. Upon contact, they begin to mutate and evolve to fit their environment. Once ready, they begin to multiply exponentially. They have only one goal, which is to consume every last resource on the planet they invade and then move on to the next. This new threat was suffocating and seemed almost impossible to beat due to how fast they were able to replicate. Though reluctant, the 4 tribes were forced to create a truce. They would hold off their attacks on each other and instead direct their forces towards their common enemy, that they dubbed the Worms. The Flamevels began scorching away the invaders. The X-Sabers met them head-on in battle. The Mist Valleys would blow them away. However, it was the Ice Barriers that threw the biggest punch, as they decided to unleash one of the sealed ice dragons that they had dedicated their lives to keeping at bay. Believing that they could harness the dragon Brionex's power, they unleashed it. His chilling aura pushed the invaders back and almost wiped them all out. That is, until they realized that the worms had a very special power, something that had made them very effective at what they do. When the worms are exposed to a situation that could lead to their extinction, they begin to rapidly evolve, allowing themselves to adapt into an even more formidable form. The horrors that the worms unleashed from that day was unspeakable. Countless tribes were slaughtered in a landslide of bio-organic horror. The tribes that were still alive gathered together and held a conference. They realized that they couldn't oppose the invaders alone and decided to join together in an all-out attack.
I love this. This is actually really organic storytelling. Like, there's actually a lot of background lore that goes into, especially the Hidden Arsenal series. Like, it actually goes hard. It's a shame that, like, I mean, some of the stuff from this era is still playable. I don't know when the last time I saw Flameville is, for example. Mist Valley, I don't know. Ice Barriers is one of those favored ones. X-Saber, a lot of people still have a lot of fond memories of them. Like, there was a narrative, I feel, that just Ally of Justice 2, that gets into, Hidden Arsenal, was that 7? It was at the back half, right? Yeah, it was at the back, because we had Cataster, Cycle Reader, wasn't that a good one? We ended up having Steel Swarms, I think, in 5. I think 7 was more Evil Swarms. I think, dude, it's been so goddamn long. But yeah, there's a whole story for the Hidden Arsenal stuff, if that's right up your alley. If you're like, wait, there's a story to this? Oh, absolutely.
Named this alliance the Allies of Justice.
Got 'em.
They would bring together the best of each of their technologies and magics to create powerful anti-worm weapons. The first of these to be developed was the prototype Ally of Justice Core Destroyer.
Oh,
the
this is
group
Ally
had
Justice,
created the Ally Mine to power the machine. It had been loaded with elements collected from the meteors the worms had come from, and as such, it made the machines highly tuned in terms of its performance to eradicate worm-like entities. One field test with Core, and after seeing its capabilities, they continued to develop it even further into the Ally of Justice, Cataster. As soon as Cataster was deployed on the battlefield, the results were immediate. It tore through countless waves of the worms, decimating everything in its path, not allowing them even a chance to evolve. Over time, more Justices were developed and used to wage war. However, there was simply not enough of them
That's
to
level
end
9,
the
right?
invasion. The worms began spreading even further across the continent, spilling into the forests of the Naturia, the lands of the Jurak, the Gen X, and even the Fabled. With more and more soldiers continuing to be slaughtered.
Look, everybody's gangster till they show up with Fabled at the table, okay? That's when you know you're in for a treat. Like, everybody gangsta, and then he just dropped Fabled on the board.
The Ice Barriers hesitantly decided to release the second of their sealed ice dragons, the Dragon Gungnir. Its breath of ice froze thousands of the worms in place, allowing the Allies of Justice to shatter them to pieces. This event had slowed down the spread significantly, but it was again not enough to cull the invaders. The tribes began to sense a final battle was approaching, and so they began construction on an ultimate weapon. Their suspicions proved correct, as the sky began to rip apart. What came out was something that the denizens couldn't believe. An entire hive mind of worms. The amalgamation looked almost like a moon as it descended down upon the planet. Worm Zero was the name it was given. The creature, as it approached the planet, began absorbing all of the other worms into itself, growing stronger and stronger as each second passed, killing and swallowing anything that merely moved before it. In a panic, the tribes revealed their trump card, the Ally of Justice Decisive Armor. With the collective power of all that had made it, the weapon fired into the heart of the Worm Zero. With its supreme anti-worm technology embedded in its core, it was able to rip a hole through the Worm Zero, which slowly began to spread, disintegrating every last molecule of every last worm that made up its being. They had won. The battle was over. The tribes, exhausted and diminished from the months of war, let out a heavy breath of relief. However, this victory would not last for long, for you see, the Fabled, who had been patiently biding their time for the right opportunity, decided to make their move.
My God.
They began attacking the other tribes while they were weak and broken. Their victory was almost assured, and it appeared that the Fabled would be the clan that would achieve world conquest.
I don't remember, when's the last time you've even seen Fabled Leviathan around? I haven't seen him in a hot minute. I know there's still people that play this deck. I know there's still people that play text from this. What was it? Old Dark World, circa like 20, what? When was the old Dark World structure deck when Grapha got released? I played during that format. It was after Teledad. Fabled Raven was an oddly common tech in Dark World back then.
That is, until the Ice Barriers, with what little strength they had left, decided on a final play. They would break the seal to the most destructive force known to man, the final sealed Ice Dragon, Trishula. Blinded by hatred and without thought for consequences, the Ice Barriers unleashed Trishula upon the Fabled. The results were better than they could even have imagined. A creeping ice crept across the battlefield, emanating from the dragon Trishula, flash freezing everything in its path. The Fabled stood no chance against the barrage of ice. However, even after their defeat, the ice continued to spread. More and more. Victory had been achieved, yet the dragon continued to rampage.
But at what cost?
Plants began to die. Lakes started to freeze over, and the very people that the Ice Barriers had tried to save were freezing in their homes. A medium attempted to seal Trishula once again in the mirror of the Ice Barriers. However, this time, it did not work. And so, with no way to stop the dragon, the realization of what they had done set in. The Ice Barriers had doomed the world to suffer an eternal age of ice. That is, however, until the founder of the Ice Barrier in his ethereal form appeared. Now the sacred spirit of the Ice Barrier, he had been watching over the dragon's seal for generations, waiting for a time where all three had been released before he would appear. He used a sacred sealing technique at the cost of his very own being to successfully seal all three dragons once again. The eternal winter had been stopped.
Yeah, to be continued. Doesn't that get into how the Steel Swarm virus evolves to the Evil Swarm virus, and then the 3 Ice Barrier dragons become Evil Swarm? What is it? Gungnir becomes Evil Swarm, or is it? No, Trishula is Ouroboros. Gungnir's Ophidian. And then I think it's Bahamut, right? Is it Evil Swarm Bahamut? I have TCG. Let me open TCG Player in the other window really quick. Evil Swarm, because Exciton Knight is supposed to be a later, like every one of them. Yeah, Evil Swarm Bahamut. Really? These are really cheap right now. You're telling me I can get Evil Swarms for this cheap? Good God. Thank you, TGS Anime, for reminding me that I can get these for pretty damn cheap now. Yes, Evil Swarm Ouroboros is Trishula. Evil Swarm Bahamut is supposed to be Brionac, which leaves Evil Swarm Ophion, not Ophidian, Ophion as Gungnir, which is interesting.
In terms of the monster lineup, the Ice Barriers are, well, pretty big. So how about we look at them in
so much
separate
support.
parts? Let's start off first with the variants. We have 5 tuners in the deck, which are the Ice Barriers Hexaspirit, Dudark, Cryomancer, Defender, and Geomancer.
I think Defender was the big one when I was playing. Defender was kind of the choice.
There is 1 spirit monster in this archetype, Sacred Spirit of the Ice Barrier. After this, we have the rest of the main deck monsters. The level 1s, Blizz Defender and Caravan of the Ice Barrier. The level 2s, Secret Guards, Zuijin and Prior of the Ice Barrier. The level 3s, Warlock and Shock Troops of the Ice Barrier. The level 4s, Speaker for the Ice Barrier, Numbing Grub in the Ice Barrier. Those two have a little bit of a variant in their names. Fun fact. Spellbreaker.
Wait, what? Wait, I missed that. Hold up. No. Take me back. Take me back. Sometimes YouTube frame by frame just doesn't seem to work. Numbing Grub in the Ice Barrier. Okay.
Numbing Grub in the Ice Barrier. Those two have a little bit of a variant in their names.
Makes sense.
Fun fact. Spellbreaker, Pilgrim, Strategist, Dance Princess, Revealer.
I remember when Dance Princess was new. Good God, it's been a while.
Mirror Judge, and Samurai of the Ice Barrier.
Samurai, I think, saw interesting tech. Royal Knight, what does he do again? Card is tribute, summon, special summon 1, Ice Coffin token. Taxes your opponent's side of the field. This token cannot be tributed for a tribute summon. It's cute. A 2k for 5, 1 tribute. It's cute.
Then we have 1 level 5, Royal Knight of the Ice Barrier. 1 level 6, Daisojo of
God, dude, Daisojo, dude, he was everywhere when I was playing against Ice Barriers. Good God. Yeah, once no more flipped is change of defense position, 22 body. Base of Ice Barrier monster you can can't be destroyed by spell or trap card effects. God, yeah, no, Daisojo, it's coming back. Oh, yeah, he's a big one.
The Ice Barrier, and 1 level 7, Medium of the Ice Barrier. But the question then becomes, who were the ones to lead all of these monsters in battle?
The generals.
Well, that's where the generals come in. There are 4 of them. General Wayne, General Raiho.
What did Raiho do again? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1 tribute, 21. When your opponent's monster effect activated on the field resolve, you must discard 1 card. They must discard one card. Oh yeah. No. He's a floodgate. Okay. No, not floodgate. It's not the right word. Right. He attaches a cost to it, which robs your opponent of resources.
General
Guntala is during your end phase, target one Ice Barrier monster in the graveyard. Special summon it. He's a reborn.
And General Grenard.
Yeah, Grenard I don't remember too much of. It was Raiho and Guntala was the two I remember being used the most.
Duloran, Tiger King of the Ice Barriers. Known in the Japanese as Duloran, Tiger Prince of Ice Barrier. Its effect is you can target any number of other face-up cards you control. Return those targets to the hand. And if you do, this card gains 500 attack for each card returned to the hand by this effect until the end of the turn. It's worth noting that in the unlikely event that the Ice Dragons were to go on a rampage, Duloran was to serve as the safety device. But unfortunately, his power was not enough for the 3 rampaging Ice Dragons. And as a result, he was defeated through a surprise attack from Trishula. Brionac, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. You can discard any number of cards to the graveyard, then target the same number of cards your opponent controls, return those cards to the hand. You can only use this effect of Brionac, Dragon of the Ice Barrier once per turn.
I think that was one of the more like simple erratas, right? Didn't they just attach a once per turn to it to fix the card? Because the original, from what I understand, was that you could use this effect multiple times per turn. An effective way of fixing it, but man, dude, old Brionac was built different. Old Brionac was a problem.
It's worth noting that Brionac has had
he's gonna go over it, yeah.
5 erratas throughout its life, being quite heavily nerfed throughout its time as well.
I'm sorry, what is the original? Discard any number of cards to return. Oh, right. Ooh, no, okay. Yeah, that's way different.
Its original first effect, its effect stated you could discard any number of cards to return the same number of cards from the field to the hand. There was no once per turn. You didn't have to get the cards in the graveyard to use the effect, so quite the nerf, really. Also, it's worth mentioning that despite looking like a dragon, having dragon in its name, and being part of a trio of sealed ice dragons, this monster is not actually a dragon.
Why they gotta do my boy like that? Look, we know you're a sea serp, but you can be anything you put your mind to. You can do it, Brionac. I believe in you. I don't know. This actually gets into my, like, I have thoughts on how Konami nerfs some things. I think that errating things to remove them from a ban list, I think it's counterproductive. However, it can harm archetypes like this where, damn, never get, like, imagine if they never, like, errated Brionac, right? Imagine if they never, like, he was still full power Brionac. He would never get off the ban list. And so thus you run into this weird situation where, you know, do you errata things like, I don't know, Forceful Sentry, Final Turn, Shockmaster, Block Dragon? What's some of the other big ones on the list? Pot of Greed? Do you errata Pot of Greed to remove it from the ban list? No, we just have variants of things of Pot of Greed. Like we have Pot of Duality, Pot of Prosperity, Pot of Generosity, Pot of Extravagance, right? Like we have things that do that. Well, but I want to play, Chaos Emperor Dragon, Envoy of the End. You know, we're in a pre-errata state, right? Well, I mean, you can't because card good, right? Or Konami, even then, you could argue, well, Konami, you know, in order to release things back into the game organically, generally has to errata things. Think like Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, like what we're talking about, Brionac, right? But then Konami just pulls a bait and switch and is just like, nah, we're going to give you Snatch Steal back for a format. We're going to give you actually, Snatch Steal is actually legal in the game. Delinquent Duo, that's the one. We're just going to give you Delinquent Duo for a format. And you just look at him and you go, why? That's like, just like Konami just saying, yeah, we're just gonna give you like Cold Wave back for a format. Well, you see how I have issues with how Konami erratas things. So on one hand, they're kind of pick and choose what they want to do, right? On the second, I think it's okay to have power cards like this. Can you imagine? Let's swap over to Magic the Gathering for a second, right? Can you imagine if, we're just going to errata Black Lotus, right? And then we're going to reserve list aside, that's a whole rant in itself. We're not talking about the reserve list. Imagine if they just errated Black Lotus and it's just like, cool, everyone can play Black Lotus now. Everyone can play one Black Lotus. How that detracts from what it is, right? It's okay to have rarity. It's okay to have scarcity. It's okay to have power cards. It's okay to have power cards that aren't in your format. So, Yeah, maybe not errating something like Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, and it needs to be on the ban list because of things like what Dragon Link didn't Dragon Link use them, or having something like Bryonak being this generic staple support. I think it helps cement their legacy as cards that like were problematic and need to be on there because of their legendary status, right? But then you run into the issue where suddenly your Ice Barriers don't have support, or you have issues where what's a good one? Trying to think, like Vert Anaconda, right? How Vert Anaconda is used in everything and a half because it's generic, and you can then use it to proc your Red Eyes fusion, whatever fusion cards you need to get to what you need to, Fusion Destiny, right? And well, if we ban it though, then we run into the issue where Predaplant doesn't get that support. So like I understand it's a balancing act. This is all to say, in a nutshell, it is a hard thing to balance a card game with over 10,000 cards, right? We've had things like Vanity's Emptiness that just popped up one day. Like, it had been printed since the 5Ds era, but suddenly everyone took an interest in it, and Vanity's Emptiness got banned for obvious reasons, right? Like, we had System Down during Cleafort format that, like, hey, this card's been around this whole time, and maybe we should use it against Cleaforts, right? Like, it's a near impossible task to keep everything balanced. It becomes a cost-benefit analysis to me of, you know, do we want to nerf these cards? Do we want to errata them so they can come back into the game, a.k.a. Makura the Destructor, right? Look at his errata, how bad that got errated. Or do we keep it on the ban list so that way, you know, table rules or like, hey, you get together with your buddies and you stream, you know, you're like, hey, let's just go through a banned format, right? Or, you know, and effectively deny archetypes like Ice Barriers out of their support. And that would be justifiable if Konami just didn't say, yeah, have a Delinquent Duo back for a format, or just occasionally like unban a banned card and realize, yeah, this should not be unbanned. So then at that point, do you errata Delinquent Duo and reintroduce it to the game? You could. Probably not. But you see how now we spent the past like 6-7 minutes discussing the ban list? God, I love this game.
I have no idea why they did this, but all right, whatever. It's also worth noting as well that
Konami does hate loops. I will say that. If there's an infinite loop, Konami hates that. Look at pole position.
Each of the Ice Dragons gets its name from a legendary spear from Mythology. For Bryonak, it is the supposed name of the spear wielded by Lu, a deity in Irish mythology. It was a spear that could create 5 beams of light that shot from its tip. These beams could either take a straight focus path or bend at its own will, and they could do some real serious damage when it hits something.
I didn't know this.
Gungnir, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. Once per turn, you can discard up to 2 cards to the graveyard, then target the same number of cards your opponent controls, destroy them. Now, Gungnir's name is taken from the spear of Odin from Norse mythology. The spear was a symbol of power, protection, and authority. Its name means the swaying one. The reason for this is because it brings people to Odin. Trishula.
You know, every time I hear Gungnir's name, I forget that that's the actual root, and I just think of the Gungnir helmet from Halo Reach. And then there was an Xbox lobby. I don't remember what the context was, but it just evolved into Smack That Gungnir, and we just sang that on repeat. So that is, and instantly whenever I hear Gungnir, that is the thing that pops into my head. It's stupid, I know, but it's great.
Dragon of the Ice Barrier. When this card is synchro summoned, you can banish up to 1 card each from your opponent's hand, field, and graveyard. The card in hand is chosen at random. Trishula's name is based on the spear Trishula, a divine weapon from Hinduism. It was said to be so powerful that it was even able to sever the head of a god. Nice. The word Trishula itself also translates to 3 spears. This is referenced with the 3 heads this monster has.
So that actually future-proofs it, though. So listen to the wording. When this card is synchro summoned, apply the effect, right? If you Monster Reborn it, if you revive it, if you special summon it by other methods, it doesn't get its effect. That's how you design a power card. Hey, you have this baller effect here that you can use, but you got to play it right. You got to do it correctly, right? It's like how, what is it? I don't know. I was gonna liken how Stardust Dragon can get its effect if you cheat it out of the extra deck, but it will not come back. Be like by Starlight Road, right? But it will not actually get its effect to come back because it wasn't properly special summoned from the extra deck the first time. But I think that that's a different situation. No, if you can loop Trishula, that's how you just win games. That's how everyone at the table just looks at you and does the nodding meme, right? Looping Trishula is like goals.
Trishula would acquire 2 alternate forms. A fusion form, Trishula the Dragon of Icy Imprisonment.
I actually really like this card. I got my 3 copies. I have no idea what I want to use him in, though. I think he's a neat super poly option. Like, he has potential, I think. But I don't know if he's going to be worth it. I think that's me just like, oh yeah, I like this. And I don't know if it actually has competitive, like, utility.
Known as Ice Prison Dragon Trishula. This card requires 3 monsters with different names to be summoned, and it must first be either fusion summoned using only monsters in your hand and or field, or special summoned from your extra deck by banishing the above card.
Oh, he's not a super poly target then.
You control, in which case you do not use polymerization. If this card was special summoned using only monsters that were originally dragons, you can reveal and banish 3 cards. 1 from your deck, 1 from the top of your opponent's deck, and 1 from their extra deck. Trishula also has an upgraded Synchro form.
I actually didn't know this existed.
Trishula Sub-Zero Dragon of the Ice Barrier. Known in the Japanese as Trishula Returned Sub-Zero Dragon of the Ice Barrier. Its effect is when this card is Synchro summoned, you can banish up to 3 cards your opponent controls. If this Synchro summoned card in its owner's control is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can special summon 1 Trishula Dragon of the Ice Barrier from your extra deck or graveyard. Its attack becomes 3,300. Halve the attack of any face-up monsters your opponent currently controls. Also, negate their effects. You can only use the effect of Trishula once per turn. Note that each dragon that follows the
By
dragon
200.
before it has attack that is increased by 200 and defense that is increased by 300. Not only that, each dragon also has a corrupted E-Swarm counterpart that has exactly 50 more attack and defense than their original forms.
Is it pronounced E-Swarm? I thought it was L-Swarm. That's how Steel Swarm and Evil Swarm, L-Swarm, right? That's how Konami naming conventions allows them to use each other's support.
And not only that, they also all have a Necros counterpart.
Oh, dude, Necros format. Dude, Necros format, people lost so much goddamn value, dude. Like, I heard there were people trading, like, binders with, like, ulti Treeborn frogs for Necros. And now I can go to, like, TCG Player. Actually, I'm curious, what is Necros actually running for? If I wanted to get the deck, I think sure it's still banned, right? I was actually running some weird techs, like, I was running, like, shooting Quasar Dragon and Necros for some of the mirrors and stuff. Oh, dear God, this stuff tanked. Holy crap. What the hell happened here? Bryo is still, Secret Forces is still 16 apiece currently right now. Good God. Wow, Necros is actually way cheaper than it used to be. Jesus Christ.
All seem to be wearing their hides as armor and use weapons made from them too.
Yeah, the mirrors.
Despite a rather large monster lineup, the spells and traps, well, there's not that many of them. There's Medallion of the Ice Barrier, Winds over the Ice Barrier, which is known in the Japanese as the Storm Clearing over the Ice Barrier, Magic Triangle of the Ice Barrier, Freezing Chains of the Ice Barrier, known in the Japanese as Crystal Wall of the Ice Barrier, as well as Mirror of the Ice Barrier and Terror of Trishula, known in the Japanese as Pulse of Trishula. And with that, guys, that is the Ice Barrier archetype done. Let me know what you thought in the comment section below. Before we go, let's say a big thank you to the people that help make these videos possible, my sponsors, to my platinum backers that give that little bit extra every month. NemoChan77, thank you so much. It means a lot to me. As well to my YouTube and gold backers, Michael Waklorski, Silver Defender, Stefan Pohl, Goosey Q, Ignis Drasil, Omar Lopez, Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything, Queen Elizabeth Denise Leggin, Jeremy Pontier, Kobe Sylvaniagam, Danny Bound, Jeremy Benj, as well, all my silver backers. And with that, I'll see you all next time.
So, as of this stream, one of the most recent sets, Battle of Legend Terminal Revenge, actually does have a we had a new one. We had a new Ice Barrier Dragon. I'm curious how that's going to fit into into how the lore works. I'm very curious about it. We have Lancia, Ancestral Dragon of the Ice Mountain. It's still sitting up at 10 to 15. It's fluctuating a bit. It's gone down, it's gone up. I'm kind of seeing what it wants to do first. 1 water tuner plus one non-tuner monsters, especially because we have like the new quote-unquote Max C, the water one. Once per chain, which is important. This is the same as Exciton Knight. If your opponent special summons a monster, except during the damage step, you can special summon one Ice Barrier monster from your hand deck, extra deck, or graveyard. Then you change one tactician monster your opponent controls to defense position. You can only use the effect of Lancia, Ancestral Dragon of Vast Mountain, twice per turn. That is a twice per turn per chain, which is spicy. If this face-up Synchro summon card is in the opponent control, leaves the field because of an opponent's card, special one Ice Barrier Synchro monster from your extra deck, this is treated as a Synchro summon. So, if this leaves because of your opponent, bam, hi, Trishul is now live. Eat 3 cards, please. But yeah, I've been keeping track of this. Ice Barriers is a fan favorite archetype many times over. You know, I remember playing against Ice Barriers back then. I remember trying to play Ice Barriers. You'll be hard pressed to find another fan favorite archetype. So there's definitely people out there, some people in chat that are like, "Oh, love Ice Barriers, water deck, best deck." You know, a very good archetype. Is it necessarily the most competitive? No. But then again, I play things like Infernoid. I actually have Infernoid over there that I actually got to go touch up. I like that recent prints have made some of the Infernoid cards kind of crash a little bit. And I'm very curious to see where it's going to go. So, yeah, very good deck, very thematic. Thank you, TGS Anime, for an awesome video on this, and that still holds up today. Yes, new cards do come out, absolutely, but that's supplementary to what you've made here. And I think you've done a great video, as well as a great breakdown of Hidden Arsenal lore. So thank you for that as well. Definitely go check out TGS Anime if you have not. In the description down below, you'll see a link to this video as well as his channel. Definitely recommend you go check him out, especially because he dropped a 3-hour Battle City dual analysis video. And I'll see you all in the next one.